hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. I'm Lorena Creole, and of course, I've got my co-host here, of Positive Fandom. How are you doing, my dear?
I'm doing great, Lorena. It's summertime. It feels like summer. There's the beach. I can smell the suntan lotion and charcoal in the air. It's a wonderful day today. How are you?
Oh, I am doing good. I'm doing good, although it's still, well, it's a Florida summer, so it's hot. However, I love it that it's, that summer, the days are longer. We get the storms in the afternoon, which just like brings the temperature down. So at night, it's still humid, but it's nice and it's enjoyable. And of course, well, we kind of like barbecue all year round, down here, but it's great. You get like the fresh produce that's in the stores, the summer fruits and everything. So it's just wonderful. I love July 4th weekend. So it's great. It's great.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
It's great. And this July 4th of July weekend is especially entertaining because the part 2 of Stranger Things dropped. So,
Yes.
oh my gosh, I'm so glad that it dropped. A little housekeeping before we get started with I can talk with this particular stream. We will not be doing spoilers for the first part of the show. So this way, those of you who have not seen it, you can get kind of our impressions of those two episodes and kind of like the whole season 4 in retrospective before we move on to actual spoilers. So we will give you plenty of warning before we move into spoilers. So this way, those of you watching this on the playback and you kind of want to know, but you don't want to be spoiled, you get a chance to find out what we have to say before we get into the nitty gritty spoilerific details. So just to let you guys know that. First of all, thank you so much, Deranged Lunatic. I'm loving the avatar. That's so funny. I love that. The new Carrie. I love that. And let me say, I bet you see, this is how I know you guys. I shouldn't even have to look. I know what that is. I know what that is. That's a Doomacorn. Here you go.
I am the Pegasus. I come bearing horrible tidings of war from the...
Yeah. Less talky, more flappy.
I love that. Love that. Thank you so much, Deranged Lunatic. All you guys, your super chats and everything definitely help my channel, and I so appreciate the support. So let's see who we have in here so far. See you guys starting to roll on in here. I see you, Gary Banjo Sandris Worthington. Hello. Says 2 long episodes. Yes, they're kind of like and I think they had said I think the Duffer Brothers had actually said this, that the last 2 episodes were actually going to be like movies.
Yeah. I have to say, Lorena, we certainly got our money's worth, didn't we? This it was very cinematic, and they were long. Even the shorter one felt like a movie. This is probably some of the best television horror I've ever seen.
I would have to agree with you on that. I was glued to my seat. I did not want to move. There's some parts where I felt as creeped out as I did when I watched Nightmare on Elm Street. And I think a lot of those scenes, especially at the lab, are very reminiscent. If you've ever watched the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, that was like on purpose. So I love that they have brought the true horror and fear back to this series. Not only that, but the callbacks that you can see to horror movies from the 80s that they've dropped in here as well. But you're absolutely right. 2 long episodes, basically 2 movies you didn't really have to go to the theater to see, and true and especially cinematic value, especially when it comes to practical effects. I keep harping on this, but Vecna's practical effects, that ugh, worth this. I think he had to stay in there. I think it was 7 hours or
Wow.
something like that.
7 hours? Oh my goodness.
On Twitter, I put up a time lapse video from the Stranger Things Twitter that showed the time lapse of the actor being put in the actual makeup and how detailed it was.
Mm.
Yes, those tentacles are they are extremely, extremely creepy in a good way. It's a mixture of the tentacles that you see on Vecna and the CGI of the ones that curl around So perfect match of CGI and practical effects. Knowing where the limits of CGI are and knowing the punch of practical effects. And actually today when I was at Universal Orlando, I got to check out the horror makeup show, which eventually I'll drop a video on that on this channel.
Oh, wow.
And they were showing how they did the practical effect for American Werewolf in London. That was not CGI. None of that was CGI. Rick Baker did like this practical effect going on, and just absolutely amazing.
That does sound amazing. I'd love to see that. I can't wait to see your video.
Have you ever seen the movie American Werewolf in London?
I have seen it, yes, and I loved it. I thought it was incredible. Of course, the transformation scene is something that is just pure genius.
It is. I'd never seen anything like that, and just how he transforms. It is. It is something that people have studied for years since that happened. It's awesome. Darius Munchausen, thank you so much for that $1.49 super sticker. I surely do appreciate it. And it is a box of popcorn. And yes, you will definitely need popcorn when we do go through this review. So thank you so very much, my dear. Appreciate the support of the channel. I so do. Star Platinum Gaming. Okay, first off, you must be a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fan. I love Jotaro Kujo, so Star Platinum, yeah, I'm down with that. Says, hey, are we allowed to talk spoilers yet? Or we're going to be talking spoilers at actually probably around 7:30. So I want to say probably like a little bit over 15 minutes. We want to give a chance for folks who don't want to be spoiled to get our impressions of the 2 episodes, and then we will jump into spoilers. So about 15 minutes. We will be a spoilerific review. Let's see. We have got, of course, is there in the chat saying hello to everyone. Love it. And Keely Chow is here. Keely Chow, Roll Tide, of course. Roll Tide. Gotta say that. He's in the house. And Man Squatch says, hey, ladies. Hey, Man Squatch. I hear hey, ladies, and I hear the Beastie Boys in my head. And there is Cool Gamer who says, hello, Cool Gamer. Good to see you. And let's see, Man Squatch says, fun fact. If you say her name out loud, if you can actually do that, your cat will be quite confused. You know what? My cat watches the TV. Because sometimes they'll have these videos for cats. I did not know they existed, or like birds and stuff like that. And he'll actually watch those and anime. The fight scenes, he just trips out. He's like trying to hit the TV. I'm like, God, no. You're going to be in real trouble if you do that. Let's see. We have Lieutenant Lance Corporal Waffles, who says
Oh,
good evening to the lovely
good
ladies.
evening.
Well,
Thank you.
good evening to you, and thank you so much for being here, my dear. Let's see, we have Jacob Ironside who says, evening, ladies. Just stopping by to say hello and give you a thumbs up. Sorry, I can't stay. Oh, no worries. Thank you so much for dropping in, giving that thumbs up, because that thumbs up helps the YouTube algorithm say, hey, check out this
Yes.
channel, gives it visibility, and
Mhm.
helps my channel grow. So I love the super chats and all of that. But I tell you, thumbs up and comments are worth their weight in gold. So thank you
Yes.
so very much. Let's see. D Nice Gamer says, hey ladies in chat. Well, hello, D Nice Gamer. Good to see you. Good to see you here. Let's see. Yeah, we did talk about the tentacles. The tentacles look like they are flowing. Yes.
Yes.
And that's the CGI part. Seeing how the tentacles slither, all the texture that it reminds me, and they probably did this on purpose, kind of reminds me of the movie Alien.
Yeah. Yes. I agree with that. I think that especially the main let's say the main tail of the alien, and how perfectly synchronized the tail is to the movements of the alien, but also
Mhm.
the tail in itself has that strength to it, where it's as fierce and as dangerous as the body of the alien, and the tentacles obviously in this story have that element to them. So I think that's a very good comparison.
Yeah, or I think it's is it H.R. Geiger? He would
That's
do
right.
like the drawings of it. Those drawings would like creep me out and fascinate me at the same
Mhm.
time, and I kind of get feels when I see that.
Yeah, you
Let's
couldn't
see.
take your eyes off of them.
No, it's just like
What am I looking at?
I'm like, it's like you're fascinated
Mhm.
with them. It's just I think besides Vecna's makeup and everything, those tentacles are probably the second most popular thing about Stranger Things. Lieutenant Corporal Waffle says, I love the description of the sound effects for the tentacles wet squelching
Mhm. That's
noises.
right.
Closed captioning is seriously interesting. They're real. Hey, E. Clay Thomason says, hello there. Good to see you. Good to see you. And an unexpected fire says, hello, ladies. Hello, chat. And throwing out that villages custom emoji for the members.
Oh,
Yeah, members get E. Clay Thomason and the like. They know members get special emojis. You get the villages emoji, you get gator emoji, you get the loofah life emoji,
yeah.
golf cart, you know, all of that. So lots of cool stuff if you're a member. Darius Munchausen says, I'm loving the new season of Stranger Things, but haven't seen the new episodes yet. Well, Darius, you're gonna be in good company because for the until like 7:30, we're talking non-spoilers. So you can get an
Mhm.
idea of what we thought um of the episodes. Let's see. Darius Munchausen says, I can't even tell where the makeup ends and the CGI begins. And I appreciate that. And that's exactly how it should be used. Know the limitations of CGI and understand where the practical effects come in. And when you make it seamless, it's absolutely perfect. Dune did that amazingly well. They
Yes.
did. Stranger Things did it very well. And as much as some people have their issues about The Mandalorian, I will say that I'm very glad that they made Baby Yoda actually a puppet instead
Yes.
of CGI, because there's things that a puppeteer can do that CGI cannot do.
Agreed. It would have been a big mistake to CGI Baby Yoda. It would have taken away a lot of his expression and realism. I mean, we know he's a puppet. There is no doubt about that. It's just that he would
Mhm.
have seemed even more artificial with the CGI.
I agree. I agree. Hey, y'all go with the loofah. The Major says, The Hunt for Red October, the best example of how to use CGI correctly that I've ever seen. And that was a classic movie. I
Yeah,
like The Hunt for Red October.
me too.
Such a cool movie. Well, folks, see, we got like 10 of you guys in here hanging out with us. So we are going to do our non-spoiler
Mhm.
review for season 4 of Stranger Things Part 2. Now,
Yes.
when the thing that always grabs me is when you're left on a cliffhanger, which we were
Mhm.
at the end of episode 7. What I expect is for whatever episode picks up that I feel like I'm not missing a beat. So with given how episode 8 picked up, or what do you think? Did episode 8 do a good job of catching us up on what happened in episode 7 and advancing the plot and exposition?
I think it certainly did. And I did want to mention that this is the first, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lorena, this is the first Stranger Things season that they've actually broken up from a part 1 and a part 2, correct?
That is correct. Usually they will just have the hour, around an hour episodes they'll have.
Hmm. Well, to be honest with you, after the gravity of what we experienced in the first set of episodes, we needed a break just to kind of absorb and digest what was going on. And I think they did it absolutely perfectly. I honestly, when I think about it now and having to wait till July 1st to see it, it was so much more enjoyable for me, Lorena. They did have a small montage where they caught you up from what happened. So, if you didn't feel like watching the first set of episodes again, you could just watch the summary. But
Mhm.
certainly, this is a complex story. And, that break really, can kind of put things in perspective as to what the hurdle going forward might be for the characters. And also, it kind of gives you a really nice sense of time because all of this isn't happening in one day. In this particular series, I imagine this might have been maybe even over the course of a few months that everything had happened. They're traveling from it's spring break, it's during spring break, excuse me.
Right. Mhm.
And let's say spring break is a week, so I'm incorrect on the month part, but it certainly wasn't one or 2 days. And even though you could marathon this entire series, I think that was one of the best things they could have done, was to break it up right at that point, just to kind of give you a chance to understand exactly what was at stake. And also to kind of, they're very careful not to throw away their characters. And, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on, but there is value in bringing some characters back at certain points in the story, and how each character is able to relate to what is at stake for them. Some of the characters have lost more than others.
Mhm.
And, we see that here, and they reiterate that theme going through. So it does feel as if that loss was significant, for one of the characters. The other thing I was going to say is, I feel like the Duffer Brothers have kind of reinvented horror on another level, and it's horror for all ages, meaning that while, let's say anybody maybe under the age of 10 couldn't really watch this, for an entire family to sit down and watch a horror film. For example, I wouldn't feel comfortable watching American Horror Story with my whole family. I don't necessarily feel comfortable watching that particular show, because there are certain adult themes that not everybody, you can't have your teenage kids in the room sometimes watching some of that
Right.
content. But
Right.
for this thing, you really could have the whole family in the room watching this, and everybody can understand what's going on. And the
Mhm.
threat does feel very real. And even in certain parts where the adults are concerned, their level of involvement in this threat is real too. So, I haven't really seen a show that's able to grab so many generations together and create a situation where, they really do have to work together. No one can do this alone. It's a team effort, families and friends. It's really significant in that regard. And that is also something I think that stands out about the show.
I totally agree with you. One of the things that I like about Stranger Things, and especially what they kept up with episodes 8 and episodes 9 is showing how real the threat is when you're not a kid, but you're not an adult.
Yeah.
And all of those struggles that you have as a teenager and all those fears that you have as a teenager and how you relate to your friends and how you relate to adults. That's something that everyone, can relate to. Kids can kind of think, oh, really, is that going to be me later on? The adults are kind of like, yeah, I remember talking about that. And the teenagers who are watching are like, yeah, that is, what I go through. Worries about acceptance, worries about, I don't like where I am. I want to change what I am. Fears about, I feel like I'm the only weirdo that's out there. And I love how they take these conversations, because of course there's a whole bunch of horror and terror and all kinds of crap going on, but there'll be like these bubbles where they'll have like this discussion, and it's very necessary because it provides interaction to how all the characters interact. And like you were saying, there are no throwaway characters, and I love that every character has a part to play in advancing the plot. So the Duffer Brothers definitely did not drop the ball with that. If anything, the tension just kept growing, ratcheting up. Things would happen that you didn't expect. Yeah, I had to stop myself there for a minute. Yeah, things happen that you would not have expected.
Yes.
Some things happen, where you would expect. Some parts, I love the fact that they left you guessing
Hmm.
in a way, like you're kind of like, is this going to happen? Is this really going to happen? Is this really going to happen? And I remember one part in episode 8, Papa, which is that's the one that's actually titled, and I kind of want to flip that a little bit. There isn't a spoiler about that. This episode, there was a seriously high tension scene, and they had to make a decision. And I said, okay, well, if they're really cutting edge, this is the decision that they'll make. And they did. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I didn't think they were going to go that way. And I'm like, I'm so glad I was right. I mean, it was like one of those things where I did not think that they were going to push the envelope that far, to do it. But the series kept me entertained. Chapter 8 just kept expounding on the plot. None of the characters, were nerfed at all. If anything, I would say, and this is kind of like my overarching criticism of the show. I really felt like the Russia plot is dragged on longer than it needs to be. And I really didn't like that. Um, I really feel that they either should have either taken it out or compressed it into less episodes. I think I can see kind of like where they were going with it, kind of like why they put that in there, and I'll talk about it in the spoiler part. But it just, I don't think there was enough there, and I kind of feel like they just kind of, there could have been a different situation that they could have put the adults in that would have been just as plot advancing.
Yeah, I agree with
Um,
that 100%.
yeah. So, what I would ask to kind of wrap things up. First of all, the finale, the piggyback.
Right.
How did you feel this episode went? Do you feel that they quote unquote stuck the landing, so to speak, to give us a finale where it's not only did they subvert our expectations in a good way, and did they give us a finale that had a satisfying ending?
Well, I was satisfied with it because it reminded me, this is the non-spoiler, so I can't say what it's reminded me of yet, but it reminded me of something that happened to me and it felt almost cathartic to see that, you know, they chose to use this as a vehicle to show, hi Darth Plato, to show sort of like, let's say, the horror associated with it. And I wasn't expecting that. I didn't know what the ending was going to be like, Lorena, but I love what they did. I think that it was a smart decision. And there's a comment that's made by one of the characters where I think that he, you know, believed, or, you know, just honestly, when this whole thing started to happen to them, they were children. And so
Mm-hmm.
now as adults, I think they're realizing, you know, the magnitude of what they're actually up against. I think that you know, Winona Ryder's character and Hopper know what they're up against, but the children didn't quite grasp what they were up against. And I think this might be the first season that they understand what they are actually up against. So that's something else that I felt was, maybe this was the last episode where they were children, so to speak. So that's why I liked the finale. For me, they don't seem as, I just don't believe that they can kind of go through life now being as, let's say, having that innocence of being a child anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point, because I picked up on that as well. These characters, especially the we'll call them young adults, because it's like they were children when this started, and now they're young adults. So the young adults that they were at the beginning of this season, they are not the same by the end of this. They have literally gone through some ish, so to speak.
Yes.
And I can't, and that's not an understatement. They have gone through some ish, and that changes you. And I like the fact how it did change them, because one of the things that you like to see, and I love, hey Bosco Scenario, hey Guy Scar, he says it's a refreshing show compared to all the other shows out there. And I agree. They took risks with this show, very good risks with this show with respect to the characters, and you see growth.
Hmm.
We like to
Yes.
see characters that grow. We like to see characters that F up.
Yes.
We like to see that. We like to see them when they screw up. Um, we like to see how they react. Something that has that nugget of humanity that we can hang on to. And I really do feel that they stuck the landing on this. They did. I think they kind of stuck the landing and kind of did a little bit of showboating, a little bit too long. Let's put it
Yes.
that way. I kind of felt like that, but they did. They did. The ending was very, very satisfying. I would say, of course, season 1 is going to be the GOAT. This one, the way they ended it, my second favorite, it's
Mm.
such a satisfying wrap up. You're literally on a crazy roller coaster ride for 9 episodes, and then those last two are like basically they're movies, at
Yes.
at the end. So it's very well worth the time investment. Absolutely love it. I do not feel that it's a waste of time, and a very, very, very solid season. So if I had to give it on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it an 8. Season 1 is always going to be a 9
Okay.
to season 1's always going to be a 9 to me. I think that it probably would have been an 8.5 if the Russia thing wasn't drawn out as long as it was. And like I said, kind of like showboating more than they needed to after they wrapped the plot up
Hmm.
in the last
Hmm.
episode. So what would you rate it, my dear?
I'm going to give it a 10. And the reason why is because it's so far more superior than anything that's out there right now. About the only other franchise that I could really compare it to is American Horror Story. And as I said
Mm,
before, not everybody can watch that. Not
True.
everybody even has the stomach for that. Some people don't like over sexualized horror. Some people don't like gore. There's all different elements that people aren't that fond of. But this was terrifying. I'm still really scared about about the ending. And I think that if you can accomplish that without, necessarily having to go too gimmicky, and it is true that we did have Robert Englund in it, there's a little throwback sense because
Mm-hmm.
this is a 1980s era, costume drama or, 1980s setting for a horror story. Even though you had Robert Englund in it, it didn't feel like they were necessarily completely capitalizing on that. Hello, Stephanie.
Ooh, fried chicken. Ooh, Lord.
Y'all are beautiful. I'll catch the replay. Gotta start making
Thank
some fried chicken.
you.
Thank you so much for
Thank
those
you, Chef
kind
Nation.
words. I think that, it was very interesting that it's hard to make horror like this be interesting. I think that for some writers, they have to add gore, they have to add sex, they have to add certain other elements to pull
Mm-hmm.
you in. But this was not needed in this series. So, the thing with American Horror Story, and as much as I do love it, every season they have a different gimmick, so to speak, and
Mm-hmm.
they go down a different route. And and it is heavily into that gimmick. It's not sort of like a light foray. They had hotel, and it was all about this hotel. They had I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to think of all the ones they had. Horror house, the one with the witches. They go full steam on into a particular area, or let's say topic theme. But
Right.
Stranger Things seems to have covered a lot of areas. It's very balanced, and it seems to still have hit a lot of the right marks on it. We see everybody's affected. And like I said before, anyone can watch this. I wouldn't, if I had a teenager, I wouldn't feel, scared about what they might see in Stranger Things. And
Mm-hmm.
also the level of quality in this production is so much higher than maybe everything that's out there. This is studio, I guess Hollywood quality, as far as I'm concerned, the highest quality special effects. It wasn't inexpensive to make this at all. This was not an
True.
inexpensive series. This must have cost them like $20 million an episode, I guess. I don't know how much, but I'm sure it was a lot. The actors' performances were wonderful. And as much as corny as the Russia part was, because it was kind of corny or campy or whatever you want to call
Mm-hmm.
it, describe it as. Yeah, I did enjoy seeing. I don't know why I enjoyed seeing Russia. This prison, this
Mm-hmm.
Russian prison, 1980s. Well, they didn't go. They didn't go too far of what could be actually happening in a prison of that time with overcrowding and stuff. This was an experimental place where they were. Um, so it felt almost a little science fiction almost element to it with the with what we saw in the last two episodes. So that also was somewhat intriguing. And gee, are they really doing stuff like that? Like, of course not. But the
Mm-hmm.
fantasy of imagining, you could see people sitting around a table saying, I bet you they're experimenting or whatever. And like,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the 80s, this is a huge topic of conversation as to what people are experimenting in labs. And and it goes there, they go there with it. um and his escape, let's say in the first segment of the series where he escapes on his in the snowmobile, the snow sled or whatever. I thought
Mm-hmm.
he was never going to escape from anything. I believed he was trapped there, and there was no way he was ever going to get out. Who knew you could devise a scheme like that and send that doll? And this was
Mm-hmm.
just really kind of out there and very um, playful almost. As she's on the phone with the gentleman, her friend who knows karate, and the black belt guy. Um, and the other thing too, Lorena, that I've been enjoying in the series is seeing, pretty much the parents. You remember what our parents looked like in the 80s. You remember
Oh
what
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
and this group of people, this is like what our parents look like. It's like very funny. I'm like, yeah, I remember my mom in the 80s. She looked just like that lady. It's like just remembering that. And the bikes. It's like, it's so funny because often I found myself in certain parts of the show saying, well, why are they driving? And I'm like, oh wait, no. This is 1980. Kids like were on bikes, like they were on bikes. That
Right.
was their vehicle. And you very rarely didn't see kids riding bikes during that time period, practically year round.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's very interesting. I think now if I looked outside my neighborhood, we used to have kids on the bikes all the time, but recently they haven't been doing that. I think it's very interesting to see the lifestyle represented. In addition to the music, which we've all been loving, we've all been enjoying this music.
Mm-hmm.
We are also seeing a certain lifestyle that's represented in a way that's you know, realistic. It's just realistic. The Eddie character for me is the breakout character, and I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna stop at that. I feel the Eddie character
Mm-hmm.
for season 4 was the breakout character of the show for me. I think that he has a certain quality to him that's amazing. I remember so many young men like him, and
Mm-hmm.
just even his entire style. It absolutely 100% authentic. He was taken from the 1980s and teleported here somehow through a time machine. So, but I'm going to leave it at that. So that's why I give it a 10. It hit so many marks. I don't think there's been another show other than maybe Reacher that's hit as many marks for me.
Very good.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think I'm holding a grudge from Stranger Things seasons 2 and 3. That could be very, very
I
possible.
can understand that. And I can understand that.
That'd be possible, but I totally I get where you're coming from. And another thing with respect to recreating the 80s faithfully, down to the outfits, down to what the mall
Hair.
looked like, the hair. Oh my God, the hair, even to the point of, hey, I have to make a phone call. And I called and the line's busy. No one has a cell phone. No one has a cell phone. They have to use radios.
That's right.
By the even okay, yeah, because I was about to say a spoiler. Let's just say even just arranging transportation. It's not like you can just hail an Uber in here.
No.
So I
No.
like how they kept that consistent. Let's see, we have Kai MFS in the chat. Thank you so
Nice.
very much for being here, my dear. He says, "Hey everyone, hail ladies, I'm ready for part 2." Well, we are here to bring you part 2, and I see Kaylee D is here. Hello, my dear. Good to
Hi.
see you. Good to see you,
Yeah,
Kaylee
cool
D.
picture.
Good to see you. And let's see. Eddie was probably my favorite character for this season. Yeah, Eddie, you know what? One of the things that I will definitely give the Duffer Brothers credit for, they know how to write a character, bring them in brand new, make you emotionally invest in that character very, very early on. So, folks, pay attention. It can be done. I've heard so many people talk about Eddie as soon as he was, introduced. And it's just amazing. He's absolutely my favorite character. Honorable mention will be Argyle.
Oh, okay.
Because he reminded me of, I got so many Fast Times at Ridgemont High flashbacks from him down, to the van that he had. I just thought he was not as prominent as Eddie, but when he would show up, I mean, again, not another throwaway character. But when he would show up, he had his own distinctive personality. I'm just like, why am I thinking of Fast Times at Ridgemont High
You're hushy
every
like
time?
Mellow.
He's just like, hey, my dudes,
The blue pants. Did you see his blue pants? He's like, his one part where he's wearing these pale blue pants with prints on them, and I'm like, yep, that's him.
That's
his
it. That's
personality.
it. And when we get into the spoiler portion, there's a part that happens. I'm like, dang, if they didn't rip that out of Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
I know the
Yeah,
part you're talking about.
no part talking about. There we go. There we go. Yes, and he knew how to shred that X. Darius Munchausen. We're gonna get to spoilers probably in about another minute, as soon as I read this super chat from Lieutenant Corporal Waffles. Let's see. Argyle has an actor who knows exactly who the character. Yes. Oh my gosh, he was so flippin' amazing. Lieutenant Corporal Waffles for $1.99 super chat. Thank you so very much for that, my dear. Eddie went like a true, yeah, we are in the spoiler portion. Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. So folks, if you want to dip out, we're going to be talking spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1.5, 1 3/4. Boom, we're done. We're done. No, Lieutenant Corporal Waffles, you're good because literally, as soon as I put that banner up there, y'all, you should have known what the deal was. That's why I put it up there so
Mhm.
early. Yes, he did. Oh my God, y'all. Yeah, I'm gonna talk
Yeah.
about we're gonna talk about it a little bit later on too, but yes, he did. And the way that Eddie went out,
Yeah.
man, it was something else. It was something else how he not only how he went out, but the aftermath of what happened with that. We want This seems to me like probably the biggest spoiler to talk about with respect to this show. And let me actually get to that in a little bit. Argyle, yes, great character for contrasting a normal person with no context going through what they're experiencing. Yeah, like when they get in the van and they're just like, drive, drive. It's like, what? What? Everything's cool. No, drive. And they start shooting. It's like, okay. And we start driving. Hey, Memes of Destruction says, hey, ladies, what's going on? Hey, good seeing you. Good seeing you, my
Mhm.
dear. Whack, whack, whack. Dude, that was my head. And that's right. Eddie did not run away.
That's
Remember
right.
in episode 1, when the cheerleader, I'm so blanking on her name, when the cheerleader basically, when she went out, he was saying that he got scared and he ran. And that was a very real emotion. I mean, and remember at that part, we didn't see exactly how Vecna killed his victims. So you kind of didn't understand. But when you finally saw exactly how Vecna killed his victims, it's like, oh, okay. No wonder, he went running away. But he had to protect, he wanted to protect Dustin. And he went out there. He started to run away, and then he remembered what happened, and he went back, and he went down swinging. And poor Dustin, because I don't think I think we've seen Dustin see people die, but not die in his arms.
Yeah. Hmm.
And with Eddie basically telling him, take care, basically take care of the Hellfire Club. And he's just when you see Dustin and just how heartbroken he is, I feel like that's the audience because I was so upset. I understood why, but I was still upset when Eddie died. And you're right, man, Squatch. We'll actually get to that part in a little bit because that's the follow-up where honestly I kind of feel like that was all of the showboating they needed to do was to end it right there and then set up what they were setting up. What did you think of Eddie's death scene? Mm-mm.
I didn't want him to die, of course, and I realize that this show tends to have at least a few deaths in the story, especially, and they keep to their theme. There always seems to be a man who is going to sacrifice himself to protect everybody. And it happens
Mhm.
in this story a lot because it's a realistic representation of what we see every day. Men, sacrificing their lives or their freedom or their, mobility or whatever it is to protect the rest of
Mhm.
us. He is essentially one of those characters that we love, not just because he's an incredible character, but because of what he did. And that first reaction to what he saw, he didn't know what he was seeing. So sometimes you
Mhm.
can see something and you don't know what you're seeing, and he wouldn't know what to do anyway. This was, you just don't know what to do. But after what he saw throughout the what happened, he mentions in part of the show that he jumped into the lake because he noticed how rapidly the ladies jumped in right after Steve went in.
Mhm.
So he felt, I guess I better go in and kind of do the right thing here. He didn't know what was on the other side, but but the ladies had experience with this, and he learned to trust them. So he saw what they did, and then he trusted them and went on and did that. And at some point, I think he realized he's the oldest, maybe the oldest or older than Steve even, because I think he was supposed to graduate before Steve, who had graduated maybe the previous year or the year before.
Hmm. Right.
He's an adult now, and he realizes what's going on, and he's not going to stand for it anymore. And he's been pushed around a lot by the community, let's say, with these sort of trumped up charges that are unfounded. He's not guilty of anything. But he does realize that despite how everybody else has treated him, it's not an excuse not to do the right thing and to go ahead. And even if no one else knows about it, he doesn't care.
Hmm.
The point is that he's ready to take that role. And a lot of men do this all the time, and we never even know what they've done.
That's
So
true.
I have to say, it's like they take a lot of punches and we don't even know about it. And maybe a punch isn't the right word. Blow. They take a lot of blows that we don't know about. And,
Hmm.
we're still around because they decided to, take the fall for it. And I thought that was, something, maybe one of the most admirable things I saw in the entire series.
I agree with you. And I love that scene where Eddie's uncle comes to the shelter, and Dustin basically lets him know what happened to Eddie, and how much of a hero that he was, and gave him Eddie's guitar pick. And when Dustin is telling him, he basically sacrificed himself, even though he knew this town did not think very highly of him. So I thought that was a cool way to end it. Let's see. E. Clay Thomason says, I thought Eddie's death was kind of pointless. I mean, what did he really accomplish? Getting Dustin and himself back to safety isn't running away. They accomplished what they needed to do already.
It may be true. That may be true. I mean, we can't really know for sure if what he did, was, had any effect over the final outcome. And perhaps that's the genius of the story, is that he was willing to sacrifice it all if it meant, even for a second, that his friends and pretty much the entire town, and I guess maybe the fate of the universe or whatever they're saying this is,
Hmm.
might have a chance at surviving better. I mean, who's to say that, one person's outcome, we don't really know for sure. We don't know if that was sort of the turning point, but he felt it was important to him. So, if that's what he felt he had to do, you know, I understand. I didn't want him to die. I didn't want him to die.
I really didn't. I really didn't either. I really didn't. And in a way, and it's like I can kind of see your point, but in a way, I can also see bringing that character full circle. Like basically, he was pretty much despised, but to Dustin, he was a hero. And that was something that kind of like his uncle needed to hear, that his nephew just wasn't this monster that certain people in the community. I couldn't stand those darn jocks. They were so annoying. Such annoying rabble rousers. So I like that his name got cleared. Hey, Jerry Venosa says, evening, the Reina Creole. And hello, hello, hello. Good seeing you. Good seeing you. And Man Squatch, this is a good point because I had blinked and missed this part for some reason. I don't know if I gotten a phone call or whatever the heck that had happened. But the fact that over there in Russia they had demigorgons and demidogs and were experimenting on them, and the fact that they had it looked like the mind flayer in a box, and I'm like,
Right.
how did they do that? How did they do that? And is it more than one mind flayer kind of out there? It's that kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. It was cool to see. It's kind of like, how did they do that? But yeah, that was a cool thing to check out. Check out. In Soviet Russia, they bring upside down to the right side up. That was funny. That was funny. Lieutenant Corporal Waffle says the whole Max thing, not gonna lie, they had me in the first half. Yeah, I did like Max's story. And speaking of Max, especially in this episode, I like how she was explaining her true feelings about her brother, about Billy dying. And I like how she kind of explained that from her point of view as, as a young adult, kind of learning, these are my feelings. Because, it's like when you're an adult like that, it's like, oh, I can't stand you. I wish you die. And then it happens, and it's like, okay, well, that's not exactly what I meant. But it's a very human reaction, especially for someone like her who feels that Billy hated her guts. He basically did treat her like crap. Let's not forget that part. That's what happened. And even 11 had seen that, but her kind of giving that exposition to what was going on. And I love the fact that Lucas was kind of like, I can't believe you said that. And then she's just like, why are you talking? And then you're like, oh shoot, okay, okay, okay. She's got her, Vecna's got her, and then 11's like, yeah, Vecna finally has her. But I just thought that was genius because they kind of put us off guard because Max had a plan to have Vecna kind of get her, and it wasn't working. And she's doing all this introspection, and we're so focused on the introspection that we don't realize that was exactly the opening that he needed. So by the time he snatched her up, it was like the horror element. It's like your heart starts beating. It's like, oh my God, she's gonna die, she's gonna die, she's gonna die.
It was very clever, and during an intimate moment between the two of them, because not only are they on this plan to do this, but they're also having a private conversation
Exactly.
at the same time. And so that's what kind of was a little tricky, trying to figure out, well, which part is actually private conversation and which part is part of this plan. But yeah.
I'm trying to find that scene because that was so. Yeah, here we
It
go.
was very good.
That it
very
was
clever.
very good, and it totally disarms you. It's like in the horror movie where the two people that you thought were going to get together are like talking. They're like, maybe when this is over, we can finally say whatever. And like, oh, you didn't like me. Yeah, I really did like you. This intimate moment or whatever. Before a knife comes out and starts slashing people. It's kind of like that same exploiting your vulnerabilities for subverting your expectations. So that's like a classic horror element. So I thought that scene was extremely, extremely cool. And Man Squatch, dude. Yes, that's something that I noticed. High top fade. He had the kid. He had the kid in play.
That's right.
But that was the style back then.
It was, and they were very high. Like some guys I know had them. They really very very high at that time. So he looks cool. It looks cool.
It looks very very cool on him. And again, I love how they're 80s authentic. When it comes to that, it's pretty awesome. Hello, Dwayne Oldson says KGB paranormal research was a thing back during the X-Files 90s
Yes.
conspiracy genre era. Yes, interesting to see it show up. Okay, now I'm interested enough to watch this season after the burnout of season 2, season 3. See, that's where I was. Like season 2, I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I wanted to watch season 3, and then people were telling me, no, don't waste your time investing in it. I'm like, it can't be that bad, can it? And then I went back and watched, and I'm like, yeah, not so good. But I will say season 4 is definitely worth the hype. You better be wearing parachute. Oh my gosh, you this it's it's funny and we laugh about it, but one of the things of watching these is just all the 80s callbacks,
Yes.
you know, that they have in this.
I mean, for me, season three's failure was the one of the storylines where Mikey's mother, I think it's Mikey's mother, and the oh, she's not in the picture, but yeah, the girl on the left. I can't remember all their names. I'm gonna watch this whole thing.
Yeah, I'm blanking on her name too. I just know this is Ethan Hawke's daughter.
Yes. Where the mother is going to this pool and all the mothers are competing because they think that Billy is hot and they essentially want to fuck him. And I'm like, this is not appropriate for Stranger Things. This is not that kind of a show. This is a total, like, why would you even put this in there? It just was not the right storyline for it. And that's when I knew it was like something's off about that season. So as soon as they introduced that, it didn't become about the horror story. Now all of a sudden you're watching a show where these women are like, well, who's going to get them? Like, and I'm like, this is not Stranger Things. This
No.
is not, this is so like off. So I felt that was a sign that they were going in the wrong direction. And I almost felt like they killed Billy off in season 3 because they didn't want to deal with that anymore. In fact, in the story, what happens is the mother decides not to do it and he goes off and he gets killed shortly after that. And I'm like, yeah, they got rid of him so that she wouldn't screw him in the story, but that should have never been in the storyline at all.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I really didn't care for that. And I felt that would be an example of something you don't want your kids to see. You don't want your children seeing stuff like that. That's completely
Mhm.
inappropriate, for that to be happening. But, they decided to include it in that season. And that was a huge misstep for me. And it also,
Mhm.
it took you away from the story. It was very, very distracting thinking about that notion. The mother's walking around in her swimsuit. It was just like, come on, what is the story really about? Because we can watch movies where they talk about that, but Things shouldn't be that.
Exactly. Stranger Things should stay kind of like in that, teenage coming of age, demographic. So you're really not talking about trying to, hook up with someone's mom. That's
Yeah,
like
come on.
R-rated weird science kind of
Yeah.
thing,
I'm like, is this Stranger Things? I actually had to like do a double take. I'm like, is he gonna hook up with what?
I
So I was
know.
very shocked by that. And then of course that meant that I couldn't say that it was something that everybody could watch. There was a certain playfulness in the relationship between Eddie and pretty much the whole group. He kind of was in charge. This is the only place that he was in charge with the group, and Hellfire
Right.
was popular. I mean, it became popular with the kids, and that was something that they all enjoyed. And then of course we learn out throughout the season how important Hellfire is, because it's the one thing that disproves what everyone else is saying about D&D and about their
Mhm.
group. And when he's in the lunchroom and he talks about, the kids who are into science, the kids who party,
Mhm.
the kids who play, basketball and, sports, the jocks,
Mhm.
and he went on and on and on. And I thought that was really interesting because, I know in reality, most kids are a combination of many of these characters, but clearly he was starting to find, or at least seeing, that he himself was becoming separate from the group because he's aging out of that. Not every school you can stay in until you're 19 or 20. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but in some places you can't stay in high school once you
Mhm.
pass a certain age. And I have a feeling this might have been the last year that he could be there. So this was going to be a big year for him, because I think that in the sense of whether he graduated or not was completely irrelevant. He was a nice kid who
Mhm.
was nice to these other kids and did absolutely nothing wrong. He's exactly the kind of friend that you would want your child to be friends with. This is but it's also playing to the stereotype of what metalheads, let's say, because I'm assuming he's a metalhead,
Yep.
um what metalheads were perceived as back then. And there's even that scene in the lunchroom where he scares the teacher. He goes really close up to her and she's all freaked out. And I always thought it's not so much that he's a metalhead at that point, it's just that he's a lot older and she knows he's older and he's kind of
Mhm.
like in her face, in her space.
Mm-hmm.
And the other kid, she could kind of boss around a little bit more, but they can't boss him around. He's an adult now. So, it's very interesting that character, that they chose to have a character who was still in high school, but
Mm-hmm.
needed or should have already, let's say, finished school, but
Right.
it's still there and he's still protected. He was in a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, as I said, I didn't want him to be killed. I didn't want that to happen. And of course, he sacrifices himself for the greater good. But you know, I um, I just kind of would have liked him to have been around a little bit longer. So
Yeah. Yeah, that granted, I am not into metal at all, but guitar talent is guitar talent, and dude freaking killed it. So,
oh, absolutely. That was a
so for
really
real.
he was incredible, and like I said, they took a time machine and went back and got him.
I agree. I agree. Yep, when Eddie and Dustin were wrestling and he told Dustin to never change, my first thought was red flag, he's not going to make it. I probably thought that in my head and I refused to believe it. I just did because I just liked him. I just liked him so much. Releasa McCracken, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. I appreciate that. Who's that? Is that you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That looks so cool.
And I'm actually wearing a Megadeth shirt. It says Megadeth on it. You can't see that well, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember where I was when I have some other photos of me looking a little bit more metal than that, but there was a
That
time
is
period.
that is so awesome.
Thank
Okay, so I'll
you.
have to I'll have to dig up the pictures somewhere. Me with my cheerleading outfit and
Yes,
my
I would
Kango
love to
hat
see
on
that.
turned the opposite way.
I would love to see that. Oh my God, I'd love
I'd
to
have
see
to
that.
I'd have to dig those up. They're somewhere like hidden. Let's see. Man Squatch says Lorena Creole. Now that we were in spoilers, of course. Why did Papa give Ellie that collar, 11, that collar, if it didn't nerf her powers? Or was her ability to spike a copter with it being nerfed? I felt like it was a way to control her.
Hmm.
I really did, in case she like really went off the reservation. With Here's the thing, I don't trust Papa at all. I do not trust him. I don't trust him. But then again, this is again the progression of from being a child to becoming a young adult. By default, children tend to trust, other adults. Levin's learning you can't exactly trust Papa because Papa is out for himself. You notice he uses a lot of I statements and seeing, the potential of your power. But didn't he see the potential in Henry, and how did that go?
He's a mad scientist, and Henry, if we're taking the story for face value, tricked L into removing something that limited his abilities. But we're also led to believe that some of the actions that L took may or may not have contributed to the creation of Vecna, let's say, or whatever you want to call him, Henry.
Henry Vecna one. What are we calling him? They actually had that discussion.
Yes, they did, and she was very clear, and I was like, okay. But I think it's interesting because she can't put the full blame on herself. This was a defense mechanism that she was doing. This wasn't. She didn't wake up that morning saying, "I don't want to f up," Henry. Like, no, that was not anything she planned on doing. She was frightened for her life, so this is not a premeditated action. He told her to wait in that closet because he planned on, going crazy, like going nuts. And she stopped him, if anything, just to, let's say, protect herself, but probably protected a lot of people by doing that. I mean, that's how I look at it from that point of view. But the scary part, of course, is the fact that, they're alluding, or at least alluded to the fact that,
Mhm.
he's not done. And he's like, well, this is just the end of the beginning. And And I could see that it's just the end of the beginning because the whole town is all foobar, isn't it? Like the town is
Oh,
all
the town is completely and totally screwed. So to kind of fast forward to the end of episode 9, which like the ending, love how that was shot, and I loved how they took their time showing what happened. We know what's going on. We know that crap is about to hit the fan. But when they pan and they see like all the characters, and then you see them advancing through the field, and you hear the music, and you see like all the beautiful wildflowers, but then you see the flowers that are dying, and you see Elle like pick up one of the flowers and just kind of like touch it, like, yeah, it's real, this is actually going down. And you look and you see like all the clouds and all the darkness and the lightning, and then it looks like the upside down is coming towards them. That was just absolutely ominous. So I love how they did that. And that it's not the end, it's the end, but it's not the end yet. But yeah, I agree. The collar had to be activated to dampen her. The collar was just to deter her from using her power. Yeah, I felt that it was a control mechanism. And with Papa, he's like you were saying, he's the classic mad scientist. And it doesn't matter what he has to do in order to accomplish his goal. And I love how Elle has come to the point where she knows she cannot truly trust him. She cannot trust him like she trusts her dad. She knows that she can trust her dad. And I think that's the difference, how she's able to rebel more, because she's like, I know what it's like to have a relationship with a father figure who I know I can trust, because Papa was the only father figure that she had for the longest time. But now that she's been in Hawkins around, her new family, she knows what that trust is like. And she knows that you cannot freaking trust this dude. I didn't trust this dude. Did you see when he had the control mechanism? I thought it was a detonator. Either way, that was in his hand, and
yeah.
I'm just like, this mofo. No. So I loved when he's like basically begging her to forgive him. She just basically said, goodbye. And I said, I like that she did that, because I'm just like, this dude.
She doesn't owe him anything, and
No.
maybe one day she'll forgive him, but certainly this is not the time to be asking for that.
I love this. I love the critical trigger. Nah, it'll be fine.
Well, it's interesting because it looked like a natural disaster, and they said, "Oh, it's an earthquake," and all this sort of stuff, and it reminded me of natural disaster before. They said that it was an earthquake.
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, that reminded me of like a major storm we had out here. Like it felt as if they were going through that, and I had such an odd reaction to it because I felt like they had to do something. They couldn't just leave Hawkins looking like Hawkins. Like it couldn't look like Hawkins. They couldn't do that. They had to mess it up so it looked like something major had happened. And they even talked about how people had died and that people were missing. And I'm like, they had to do something like that. It couldn't just be where they woke up the next morning and were like, wow, we had such a terrible experience. Okay, time to go out, to the amusement park and, like get on with our lives. I'm like, no, it couldn't be like that. They couldn't do that again. They couldn't.
No, that's why I liked how you saw the quote unquote snow that was falling, and we know what that means.
It
But the
sounds like
people of
nuclear.
Hawkins didn't know what that meant. Little girl's like, Mommy, look, it's snowing. We're just like, y'all are so screwed.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things I thought at first, since we saw what looked like could be volcanoes, it could be volcanic ash, but then I thought like even nuclear fallout. There are so many things that could be falling down on this town, and the town is never going to be the same. And so I hope that if we do get another season, if we do, that it really is not the same. I don't want it to be the same. They can't do that because it would just be too unrealistic.
I agree. I totally agree. Let's see here. Otis Ottenberry, hello, says them leaving Paul Reiser's character was messed up. He actually cared about her. Yeah, he really did. I feel that his relationship with Elle, that Elle can actually trust him a lot more than
Then
a lot
Pop.
more than Papa.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a little sketchy, and he's a little sketchy and dubious too. But compared to Papa, mm-mm, no, no. But I agree, and you can, and unlike with Papa, and I actually have to give Matthew Modine credit,
Yes.
even with his way he reacts and his facial features, you can tell that it's fake. With Paul Reiser's character, you can tell that he actually cares about what happens to her. Especially when he's pleading with I guess whoever that
The military or these guys who were
yeah,
mercenaries who were hunting
yeah,
Elm.
we're trying to hunt Elle, and he's trying to bargain with them. Like, she's not a threat. What if, I can get to her and control her, which brings me back to the other scene actually that tripped me out was when, and I think I showed it earlier. Man, I got to go back and find it. When she's there with the plane, and you see the sniper, because you got Papa and the sniper's like shooting, and he's like, I have a clear target. Can I take the shot? Can I take the shot? And they're just like, what the heck is gonna happen?
Mm-hmm.
And they're pleading like, don't worry about it. I can control her. And I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember if it was Paul Reiser's character. Yeah, it was Paul Reiser's character.
Yeah, yeah, it
Who was
was. Yeah.
just like, just let me talk to her. Let me go out and control her. Basically, this is the bargain we can make, right? And I'm thinking, if the Duffer Brothers want to push the envelope, they have to tell this dude, has to say, take the shot. And sure enough,
Yes.
that's what he did.
Yes.
That's exactly what he did.
So let me ask you this, Lorena. Is the Paul Reiser character still alive?
That is an excellent question, because we have not seen a body. We really don't know what happened. I would hope that he is still alive. I believe that Papa is still alive. I still believe they're both still alive. And I really, really do feel like they are going to come back. Lieutenant Corporal Waffle says season 5 confirmed as the
Oh,
final season.
fantastic.
Very good. I hope they take 2 years to write it.
I'll wait. I'll wait 3 years. I'll wait as long as it takes.
I mean, I agree, as long as they can stretch it out, because I do not want them to half-ass this uh, at all. Let's see. E. Clay Thomason said they couldn't go back and get him because they would have been captured by the
Yeah.
colonel. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I still think, I'm calling it right now. Paul Reiser and Matthew Modine, their characters are gonna be back. Hey Phil, good to see you, my dear. And thank you to all the 20 of you in here hanging
Yes.
out. Thank you so much. We are doing our armchair review of part 2 of season 4 of Stranger Things. So glad you guys are here with us. Brett Sanders has say, I don't think I've seen you here before. So welcome to the channel. The Duffers said that season 5 will see a time jump from season 4, likely accounting for the age of the actors. That's a good point, because not only the age of the actors, but what about other projects that I'm pretty sure that they're involved in, especially Millie Bobby Brown.
Right.
So they
Right.
can't, yeah, it's kind of like with the Harry Potter movies. They're so much older than actually they should be, just because they had to film all those movies in succession. So I'm
Right.
interested in how much of a time jump it's gonna be. Take your time writing this. We're not in any hurry, okay? We don't want a repeat of seasons 2 and 3. Just saying.
Exactly.
Just saying. Spike and Manna says Papa is gone. He got a bullet through his chest. Mm, he did.
He
I
he
will
looked dead.
give them. Yeah,
He looked dead before, didn't
he
he?
yeah, he looked deader than Elvis before. So that's kind of like my thing. I don't. I
Speaking of
think they're gonna
Elvis,
bring him back.
speaking of Elvis,
Yes. Yes.
we're going to be doing something with that soon.
Yes, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Actually, we're going to have a kind of like a special The Toxic Masculinity Show. It's going to be airing on Twitch and YouTube at the same time. We're going to be talking about the Elvis movie, doing a review of that, and Kamran
Yes.
Pasha will be
Yes.
our guest for that. So you
Yes.
definitely want to be there with that. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, who could be a more toxic male than Elvis? Now that I think about it, you know?
I love
It's
it. I love
pretty,
it.
pretty, pretty awesome. Yeah, I love this scene, and we're gonna kind of get the final thoughts. I love how
Mhm.
this was shot,
Yeah,
and we're
it
talking
is.
about the cinematic value,
Yeah.
how high it is of these two episodes.
And it seemed like at some point there was a lot of coupling going on. It seemed like Steve was going to
We'll see. I would like for him to be deader than Elvis, but we'll see.
it seemed it seemed like Nancy was going to go out with the girl that she wanted. And yeah, that is very true about the lightsaber.
You guys are funny.
Um, it seemed like,
Sorry, I gotta put this here and I'm done. I'm done.
God, yeah, he does have 9 lives. It seemed like Nancy was finally going to, I think it's Nancy. The girl who is in marching band was going to go out with the girl who was in the marching band, and then it didn't work out. And then Steve looked like he was going to get back together with the girl that he used to date, and it's kind of like unsure because now her boyfriend is in town again
Mm-hmm.
at a very critical moment when everybody was trying to push Steve and her together.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody was pushing for this. Even Eddie was like, a girl who jumps out of a such and such is the kind of girl you want to hold on to. And Steve is like, yeah, I kind of do like her, but the reason
Right.
why he's probably been backing off is because she has a boyfriend. She's another boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's been, kind of staying away. And Mike, seeing his friend again, Elle's boyfriend, he's hurting, I'm not quite sure what he's hurting from, but he seems to have not been the same ever since he came back from the Upside Down. So,
I agree.
for me, he just has not been the same ever since he regurgitated whatever that thing was
Mm-hmm.
in season 1. So
Ooh, that was so crazy gross. I loved it.
yeah, it really was. I'm wondering where that thing is. It's, of course, it's replicated probably. I always like to think it was in the sewers of New York, but they're in Indiana, I guess, at the time. But that thing found its way here. So there's a bazillion of them here, and they're like
Mm-hmm.
rats here. So there's a lot of this coupling going on, and by Elle finally hearing her boyfriend say that he loves her at a pivotal moment was critical. But of course, Max is in a coma, and there
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem to be any happy ending down the road for her and Lucas. So we have this scene on the hill, and Lorraine, you mentioned it looks all bright and sunny, and then as they start to walk into an area where the land is essentially dead, the significance of seeing something dying, and essentially pretty much losing a lot of their innocence in this
Mm-hmm.
particular season. Uh, for me, at least, even Erica, who maybe isn't the most innocent kid on the block, but even she has seen things that
Mm-hmm.
I think now has matured her a little bit more. From saying I want to have unlimited ice cream for the rest of my life to now she said she wanted a Nintendo 64 with Duck Hunt, and it comes with Duck Hunt, by the way. But
I
you know,
remember that game.
yes, it came with Duck Hunt and Zelda. So, and maybe even Mario, but maybe it was just Duck Hunt and Zelda. But anyway, um, I think it's very funny that going forward, I have a feeling she won't be asking for that the next time around. I mean, this series we saw the kids in a gun shop, which is not unheard of. It's not
Hmm.
unheard of to go in an Army Navy store or any
No.
of these stores. It's not unheard of. They bought pretty much stuff that you could find there, especially back then, like
Hmm.
endless supplies of duct tape or lighter fluid, all that sort of hardware style stuff that they knew they could find at that store in order to fight Vecna. um, but I think their plan was actually pretty darn good. Even if Vecna did know what the plan was, I don't think he was aware that they were willing to sacrifice themselves in order to make the plan work. But let me ask you this question, Lorena.
Hmm.
What happened to, in your opinion, from what we've seen in the season, what exactly has happened to Max?
Do you mean with respect to what finally happened? Finally
Yes, let's
happened to
say in
her?
yes.
Oh man. Oof. Oof. I get choked up when I think about this.
Mhm.
Of course, a little bit earlier we talked about how she was trying to kind of try to trap Vecna in a way. And she goes into this diatribe talking, not diatribe, I should say, introspection about how she wanted Billy to die. And then when he finally did, and her feelings of guilt that she couldn't forgive herself, and talking about how, I really, really just wish I could wake up and I would be taken, instead. Vecna winds up snatching her up. And you see, the battle that Elle is trying to have with Vecna to basically try and save Max, try and save her. And you see her go flying up in the air, and you're just like, no, no, we do not. No. It's like, no, this isn't going to happen. And you start to see her body contort like the other ones that died. And it was just heartbreaking, to see. But eventually, Elle is able to stop it, and she falls to the floor. Max falls to the floor, and Lucas is just there holding her. And Max is like, I can't see, I'm not ready to die. I don't want to die. Lucas is like, no, you're not going to die. You're not going to die. And you flash between Lucas holding Max, and then you see Elle there, when she's sensory deprived and like all is black, and she's right there. And you can see by the way that Elle's reacting that she knows Max is gonna die.
Yeah.
And it's like she knows Lucas is in denial about it, but she knows. And she does something. Elle does something to you see she's like trying to see what she can do to bring her back, because in her mind she's flashing back to like how she and Max connected. Max was the outsider and they kind of all bonded together. But in the end, Max is in the hospital. She's in a coma, and Lucas tells us that basically her heart stopped for a whole full minute, but then started back, beating again. And Elle's just like, I couldn't, whatever she tried to do was like, it probably was not enough. And we really don't know if Max is going to come out of this. And I really do like the how they left that in
Mhm.
limbo. It wasn't the happy ending of, well, oh, Max is going to be okay, because I mean, she got saved once. She got that one.
She did.
But it didn't with it this time, and it was a real consequence, that everyone has to
Hey,
deal
Tom.
with. Hey, Tom.
We are all
Hey,
good
Tom.
people, Tom.
Good seeing you. Good seeing you there, Tom Jackson. I sure do appreciate that.
Mhm.
That's right. Exactly. Max is in limbo.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
what's also very interesting about this is that this was also one of the first times that we've heard, let's say, the group talk about the fact that of the idea of not winning.
Yes, which is very how to put this? It's very Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
And if you remember, one of the reasons why the Empire Strikes Back was so innovative, the good guys didn't win in the end. The good guys got trampled on, thrown about, lost so very much. At the end, they were just barely able to escape, some of them with their lives, some of them without. And at the end, it's just like, we didn't win. And that's when Mike was, who was it? Was it, no, it wasn't Mike. It was Will, who was saying, Elle hasn't lost like this
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
before. She hasn't lost, and it's not like it's a nobody. This is somebody she knows, somebody that she's close to, and it's hard for her to actually feel that defeat. She's taking it very, very, very personally. A lot of growing up here, so I love that.
Do they, and this is my last question about this whole thing, and I think it's also kind of interesting because I have a feeling, I'm going to say that I believe that the parents understand, but
Hmm.
do the, let's say, the I guess the main characters, the young adults, understand now what they are up against?
I believe that they do. I believe that they do, and I believe that this whole season was about learning what they were up against. And with it happened in a way with Will in season 1 when he got taken, and they were
Yes.
kind of just like, "Oh, okay, this is for real." But with season 4, when you see all of these teenagers dying, and then the fourth one in line is Max, and they see what happened to her, it's like a difference between a death happening to someone else's family and a death happening in your family. That's when it gets real. So when with that happening with Max, that's when it really started to gel that, this is not something to mess around with. Even when they're just like, we got to go to the upside down and basically light up this Fecna dude like a Christmas tree, with fire and everything. That was very serious. Them going to the Army Navy store, and loading up on that. So I think with this season with Max, with one of their own again being threatened in that way, not only that, but they know the horrible death that can happen to her. Yeah, definitely. They really know the stakes, and it's really helped their characters grow. So I'm interested to see how they're going to happen with season 5 when that comes out. Let's see, Kevin 6. Hello, how are you? And so glad to see you here, my dear. The entire story arc of Stranger Things is because of 11. She's from another dimension, ripped out by a government experiment gone wrong. What she thinks becomes the reality around her.
Hmm.
That's an interesting take.
It is.
That is a
Wow.
very interesting take. We'll find out in season 5 if that's exactly the deal. Definitely.
And Lorraine,
Definitely.
was this the blockbuster of the summer? It feels like it is in the sense of television wise. Was this the runaway
Hmm.
blockbuster hit of, let's say, of the summer for right now? I mean, I don't think there's been anything else that's come across that has been this popular, has had this much excitement, this much talk about it, and this much speculation going forward. What do you think?
I would agree with you, and actually, Deadline agrees with you. Stranger Things sets U.S. streaming record, Nielsen says. Obi-Wan, The Boys, and Fantastic Beasts are far behind, but cracked the weekly top 10. This is how I this is in a way how I know, and this is confirmation for something that happened early Friday morning. Long story short, I had to work like really, really, really late. So around 2 a.m., I'm like, oh, Stranger Things is loaded, right? I boot up Netflix, but crashed. I've never had that happen
Wow.
before. Never had that happen before. So there's reports out there that the server got hit so hard that it crashed because they also had a watch party on not a watch party. Yeah, it was a watch party on Scener with the Q&A with the cast from Stranger
Wow.
Things.
Wow.
Yeah, Man Squatch says Reina Creole. When I was watching it Friday morning, I saw Netflix crashed was trending on Twitter. Yeah, because that is what happened. There was
Wow.
so much demand for this that it crashed the
I
servers.
believe it. And one thing that I am going to say, one of the items on there, The Boys, is not appropriate for every audience.
No.
So that's
Oh
a
God,
very
no.
that's a very niche audience. I think that's okay that it is. But it's not really anything that's in the same category as Stranger Things. As I said, the thing about Stranger Things that stood out to me for a horror story is that the whole family can sit down and watch this and enjoy it, and you don't have to worry about what you're going to see in it. You know,
Mhm.
and I've actually commented on other shows about how we see forced situations, forced romantic situations. We didn't see any of that, and yet we saw many types of relationships in this series, and they were
Mhm.
100% natural. Nothing was forced, nothing was awkward. Absolutely nothing was awkward. This was completely natural, the way that a relationship builds, regardless of who the two people or three people
Mhm.
that are involved in it. And I that was so refreshing to see a real life situation of how relationships actually do end up happening.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's funny you bring up something um, that I was watching with Stranger Things. I'm a chuff chick, and it is very hard to make me emotional when I watch something. But that scene where Mike just kind of doubts that he's worthy enough for Elle. He's just like, I'm basically just this nerd and Superman just happened to show up. Elle doesn't need me, and Mike basically breaks it down to tell him that yes, Elle does need you. She was she doesn't feel like she fits in, but with you, she felt like she was special. Her powers didn't make her a weirdo. Her powers made her an awesome person. And you do that, for her. And the way he broke it down, I'm like, oh my God, this is so this is so awesome. Because it's like even the people that you think are the strongest. And I like how they did this. With as strong as Elle was, she loves Mike. She absolutely loves Mike. And Mike does love her, but feels like he's not worthy of her. And we find out later on in the episode, him actually breaking down and telling Elle how he feels about her, how awesome he is, how awesome she is, and that basically that he does love her. You saw what that did. That was the thing that turned the tide that actually gave her the strength to go and put her foot in Vecna's ass. But I love how they did that. I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I have a waterproof mascara.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't freaking judge me. All right. I was like, don't judge me. Don't judge me. Man Squad says, I'm thankful they didn't push the Will being gay thing too far since the 80s society wasn't very kind to gays yet. Yeah, I kind of like how they left it out there. You could see with the emotion with how he was acting that he did have that Will had this kind of affection towards Mike, you know. So I'm glad that they did it that way because that's something that's very real, as well. And I like how they did it without overdoing it, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with the female characters as well. And I don't know why I can't remember this woman's name. because we were just talking about her, and I think it is Nancy, but maybe it's not. Um, and why can't I remember her name? She's best friends with Steve. And so they work at the video store together. That's the character I'm talking about. And they didn't. If it had been any other show, they would have forced them to kiss each other in the show at the end. I'm almost convinced of this. At that, where they were doing the recovery after the disaster happened. That's what we would have seen, something that was forced, but it was just natural. They were just being natural people, and that's how relationships are built. In
Exactly.
interactions like that. And
Mm-hmm.
they are very careful to show how people do speak to one another, like that kind of nervousness where she's,
Oh,
thank you
Robin.
so
That was
much.
her
That's
name.
right.
Thank you so
Robin, thank
much.
you. How she got nervous and she started talking, and they didn't give up on the idea of Robin having that relationship or even being friends with this woman, like
Mhm.
they get one chance and it's over. They didn't do that. And as I mentioned before, they don't give up on the characters. She's
Exactly.
still going to be friends. Robin's is still going to be friends with this other girl who lives in the town. It's not
Mhm.
over. I think it's interesting to show these relationships that people have, and they do go on. And Tom Jr. Jackson is saying
I know, with the fan. Doesn't she look hot with the fan
Oh,
blowing? I
thank
freaking love
you.
that.
And he goes on to say, always a good time when Positive Fandom and Reina Creole get together. And I couldn't agree more. Tom Jr. Jackson, thank you for your
Yes.
kind words.
Yes. We have the best flipping time when we get together and scream together.
Yes.
Let's see. One more thing before we wrap up. Brett Sanders says my prediction is 11 will sacrifice herself to save the world at the end of season 5, and Tom Jr. Jackson agrees. You know what? That I feel
Yeah.
like that's going to happen. I don't want it to, but there's some kind of sacrifice on her part. I think that's gonna happen, but we'll see if that comes to fruition. So
Yes.
let's see. Hello, Wintrell. Good to see you. Says interesting you speak of Empire Strikes Back. So Max is Han Solo and Carbonite. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
Pretty
that's very
much.
good comparison, of
Hmm.
course. Lorena, you're exactly right with that comparison. And yeah, let's see what happens in Return of the Vecna, or whatever they call it.
Return of the Vector, Return of the Hellfire Club.
That's right. Hellfire Strikes Back, or whatever they want to call it.
It's gonna be awesome. So any last thoughts regarding part 2 of season 4 of Stranger Things?
Well, thank you, Duffer Brothers, for saving this summer season and spring season for us, making this such an enjoyable and rewatchable experience with so many hours of quality programming in this one series alone. That you could watch it over the course of a week or a month and rewatch it and just kind of enjoy it. Get the popcorn out, right, Lorena? Get that
Mhm.
popcorn out. Get your
Oh,
snacks
yeah.
out. And just kind of enjoy a lot of this stuff. If you like, to see what it means to bring back a horror genre from the 80s and do it correctly. The Duffer Brothers have mastered this, guys. We've seen so many other franchises trying to do this and they haven't been able to. And it's true, Stranger Things has had some hiccups in some of their seasons, but I think that those days are over. Guys, if you haven't watched Stranger Things because you didn't want to watch those other seasons, go ahead and watch season 4. You will not be disappointed.
You're absolutely, absolutely right. Season 2, it's kind of like, eh. Season 3, I'm just like, I could have done something else. Season 4 hooked right away. I mean, just hitting next episode, next episode, next episode. Are you still watching? Hell yeah, I'm still watching. Why you ask me that? It kept you hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And I just could not stop watching. Just the interaction between, all the characters, the story exposition, the insurmountable big bad. And this is something that so many TV shows and movies are missing. Your story is only as good as your villain. If your villain does not seem invincible, there's no hero story to be told. Vecna is the kind of villain who basically seems bulletproof. He's like freaking Voldemort, invading your mind, invading, your space. How does he operate? Why is he killing so many people? He is so, it's like the fact that, Elle can't truly win against him, and Elle is used to just winning. It's amazing. It's something that we haven't seen, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat watching, and like the hairs on the back of your neck, figuring out where's Vecna next, where's Vecna, stalking people next. And the actor that plays him, just every word that it is so sinister. It's so sinister and such a flip from the mild mannered number one that we've seen through most of this series. And as soon as he's basically activated, for lack of a better term, so freaking scary. So scary. I love that the horror roots are back, where you actually feel scared, and you feel scared for the characters as well. You really feel like there's something going to happen to them, and there's stakes involved. Eddie's dead. Yeah, pretty much. Eddie's dead. Max is in a coma. We almost started to see her dying, and that was messed up.
Yeah, that was hard to watch.
That was very hard to watch, because we knew it was going to happen, and then it started happening. And then at the end of the episode, the upside down is coming to Hawkins. There's a big, huge reckoning that's coming, and we really don't know if the town is gonna survive, because Holly told everyone what was gonna happen. Oh, the other thing that I liked, that Vecna didn't kill her. He said, "I want you to see, and I want you to see exactly what I'm gonna do. And I want you to tell Elle and tell everybody." And she doesn't want to see him. He's like, "No, you
Yes.
have to say it." And when she comes back, and it's like, "Oh my God, why did he let her go?" And she's saying exactly what's going to happen to the town, just telling them, this is what's going to happen. We're getting invaded. It's evil. They're coming into our reality, and that's just what's going to happen. But you also had to remember, Vecna kept her alive for a reason, which is even scarier, that he didn't kill her.
Well, he coyly said, initially I wanted you to be by my side as I took over the world, but now I'm happy with you just watching me do it. And I thought that that was very unusual for him to want to keep her alive, as you said, Lorena, but he
Mhm.
wants her to see it. Why does he want her to see what he's doing? This is
That
very strange.
That's very strange, because it's like it has to be something about her, because remember when they found the way back from the upside down, and everybody's just gleefully, going down the makeshift rope. Boom, here I am. Boom, here I am. Boom, here I am. This is great. She jumps out. Guess what? You're still in the upside down, chick.
Mhm.
That was scary. So you're right. What is it? What is it about her
Yeah, and
that
I
he
think it
stuck
was he was
around?
speaking to he I think he definitely wanted her to see, but he also wanted Elle to see as well. And
Yes.
that was, I guess he does need someone to see what he's doing. And there may be some reason behind that. For the Vecna character maybe needs to have something that hasn't been revealed yet. And I'm not quite sure what it is,
Mm.
but it sure is terrifying.
Or maybe because she was the one who pressed to go see Victor in the asylum, and pressing him to tell his story about what happened.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right.
That
She did.
she really did. So, we will
She
have to
knows who's.
see. She knows things.
Mhm. And I'm sure after she's spoken to Elle and realized what the lowdown is now, it
Mhm.
definitely changes the situation. I love what they did with that part of the story. It just came full circle, and he was very off-putting as the friendly, number one, when you didn't know he was the one, just sort of like the
Mhm.
orderly, the friendly orderly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so,
just kind of like, oh, well, why are you trying to look out for me, and do all of this? And I'm sorry they were shocking you with that collar and all of that. And you find out dude had the equivalent of a restraining bolt on him and she basically took it off. It's just, ugh, makes you wonder. Oh, well, Spike and Magnus says Vecna has that superiority of a god and the disdain for humanity as evil as a demon. He is truly frightening. Yes.
and I'll be willing to bet you, Lorena, that he's not going to be redeeming himself anytime soon.
Oh, heck no. Mm-mm. He's gonna, when he goes down, he is gonna go down cursing humanity from here to kingdom come. Just no. Just no. I'll give you a hint, ego versus id.
Hmm.
A lot of that is psychological when it comes to Henry slash Vecna slash one. I find that interesting. Dude
Yes.
has like three names, like this god of destruction that has different names depending on, what region of the world is talking about it. So that's interesting. I love the fact that we have a villain who, like you were saying, completely irredeemable. There's nothing irredeemable about this guy. He's evil because he wants to be, and
Hmm.
evil even to the point of basically telling Elle, you created me. It's like, actually, you kind of wound up creating yourself in a way, but
Agreed, Lorena. And I love the montage where he talked about his how he became who he is and how he realized he was different from day one. And his worst nightmare was that his mother kept taking him to doctors and saying, "Well, what's wrong with him?" And he's like, "There's nothing wrong with me, Mom. I'm fine."
mhm.
Like he was the bad seed, so to speak.
Like,
And
what was sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Like that movie, oh God, he's like freaking Damien.
yes, yes,
He
yes,
is. And that was like Damien and who was that movie Macaulay Culkin was in? Was it called The Good Son?
yes.
Oh, that was oof. Oh Lord, that just a freaking bad Rosemary's Baby seed going on there. Ugh,
Why
but
do you
that
suppose, Lorena, that he let his father live?
in a way, it may have been more torture for his father to live and witness his crimes, maybe in a way of basically saying, I am worthy, you should be proud of me, for this, because he was talking about his son was just like this very gentle child, and it kind of seemed like he was kind of disappointed that he was that way. So he probably did leave him alive to torture him. There's some people where it's like it's a better punishment for you to live and torture for the rest of your life, and it's too merciful to just kill you
Mhm.
and get it over with. So think that may I think that may be it. Wants him alive to torture him so that when he hears about these crimes that are happening, he's forced to relive all of that over and over again, and kind of have that torture in that you actually helped to bring this evil into the world. It's kind of like some interviews that I've seen with mothers of like serial killers. It's like, this is my child and I love him, but at the same time I feel like I brought this evil into the world, and I can never, forgive myself for this. It's like I have to wake up every day, and relive that. Thank you, Scott Harris, for reminding
Yes.
me, the good son. Yeah.
The bad seed, right? Right.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's a good movie to watch, The Good Son. That's literally what's going on here. Tom Jr. Jackson, The Good Son. There are so many 80s film nods, but I really got a Nightmare on Elm Street vibe
Yes.
from this season. Agreed, because if you remember the reason why Nightmare on Elm Street was so scary was that if you're dreaming, it's like you can't defend yourself
Right.
and you have to sleep. You have to sleep. It's not like don't go into that house or, don't talk to that person. you can't help but sleep, and then it's in your subconscious, and it's just like if you die in the dream, you die in
You
real
die in real
life.
life. Yeah.
Hey, Courtney's Fellowship
Courtney.
of Oddballs. Hello, my
Hi.
dear. She says, hi, beautiful ladies.
Thank
Hi,
you.
chat people. Hey, I think that's another thing that makes Stranger Things so attractive. It's, I mean, yes, it's horror and you kind of have not as much blood and guts, but so much of it is psychological.
Yes. Yes. And there was a lot of situations that we saw of people either suffering and hiding the suffering or having extreme amounts of guilt and shame that it seemed like Vecna would feed off of as well.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
he seems to need to have these experiences. I think the girl's name was Chrissy, but I could be wrong. The cheerleader, she had some issues with, I guess, her parents, her mother, and her
Hmm.
relationship between whether she looked appropriate or not.
Hmm.
And then the boy who had gotten into the car accident and killed someone, and having that shame, the scar that he had on his face,
Hmm.
was another situation there. I didn't know what that one boy who was on the team, experienced. I don't know whether they showed anything. They probably did, and I missed it. But
Um, I don't. They didn't really go into detail with him and kind of like where his shame came from. I think that maybe he thought he wasn't good enough. You kind of
mm,
noticed a little bit of trailing off when he's, around the team, but nowhere near the flashbacks. So that's actually a ball that got dropped. Now that I think about it, it's kind of like, well, why didn't they show that? You know.
and then the Robert England character, he mentioned that he was in. I guess it was during the war, probably World War II. The id, the ego, and the super ego. Yes. Thank you, Kevon
Mhm.
Six. That's very good to
Good
show us.
call. Yeah, thank you.
And he mentioned that during the war, he thought that this place, this building, was packed with the enemy, and it turned out that it was a school or something. And
Yeah.
he had it shelled, and unfortunately, all these people lost their lives. And of course, he's going to feel guilty about that for the rest of his life. But
Mhm.
things like that where people, have made mistakes or whatever it is. Um, but I thought it was so cleverly done, and certainly made this season, this year, so much more enjoyable for sure.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. Man, this is something I'm gonna be rewatching several times because it actually is that it really is that good. I mean, honestly, if you well, let's see. You could. It's like you won't get the whole thing if you don't watch seasons 2 and seasons 3, but honestly, I'd watch 1, watch 4, and then go back and watch 2 or 3, honestly. I mean, that's what I would do because
Mhm.
if I feel like 1 and 4 could basically stand alone, by themselves, but that's our review. Of course, the
Yes.
best opinion is the one that you form yourself. So if you feel that you want to watch part 2 of Stranger Things season 4, by all means, go for it. Go for it. But it gets the seal of approval from both of us. It's definitely worth your time. So before we wrap up here, you want to tell the folks where they can find you and what you have coming up.
Yes. So tomorrow I do have my Sunday brunch show at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel, Positive Fandom. And for those of you out there, do please subscribe to Positive Fandom. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers.
Yes, yes, she is.
And so I appreciate you all out there in the chat, and anybody who's watching on the replay. Please do subscribe. I appreciate that. I also, it's going to be a light week for me. I can't remember. I have to look at my calendar, Lorena, because I normally say that I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. So, are we doing something on Thursday, Lorena?
Yeah, Thursday we are going to have our toxic masculinity appreciation show, but kind of like a special edition because we're doing the review of Elvis with
Yes.
Kamran Pasha. So you definitely, folks, you do not want to miss that. It's going to be fun, especially Kamran has been a little MIA for a while with doing live streams. So we're glad he's definitely glad he's back. Elvis is a movie actually that he effusively recommended that I go and see. So it's going to be very, very cool reviewing that on Thursday here on my channel with her and Kamran. 5
And
p.m.
then
Eastern.
Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, I will be on Midnight's Edge in the morning with Tom and Andre. Um, I might be doing a late night stream tonight with Robert
Ooh,
Meyer Burnett on his channel, The Post Geek
ooh,
Singularity. But I'm not quite sure yet, but do keep an eye out for that. I'll send out an announcement if I am doing one, but that's what I have so far this week. So please do subscribe to Positive Fandom. And thank you for tuning in.
yes. And folks, the link to her YouTube channel is in the description box of this video. So please do go ahead and subscribe to her. As for me, it is a very light week next week, especially considering the 4th of July holiday right now, officially on the schedule. Of course, Thursday Elvis review that we're doing on my channel over here. Let's see. Then, of course, we have Saturday.
Today,
Yes. So
yes.
next Saturday, not now, but next Saturday, 9 a.m., I will be live streaming from the Magic Kingdom Park. We are going to be
Ooh,
touring Frontierland, and I may actually get on Splash Mountain. So we're gonna have some fun exploring Frontierland. Frontierland is a area that's extremely well themed. I always have a great time over there. So we're gonna have a whole lot of fun showing you guys around that particular area of the Magic Kingdom. And so excited about this. 6 p.m. Eastern,
yes.
Saturday, July 9th. And I are hosting a live watch party of the Tallywood movie RRR Rise, Roar, Revolt. So we are going to be watching that live watch party. You will need to have two things if you want to watch the film along with us off screen, because I'm not trying to get claimed. Over on Scener, you have to make sure you have a Scener account, and you also have to have a Netflix account as well in order to watch RRR live with us. Even if you don't have a Netflix account, we're going to be doing running commentary, and folks are going to be dropping observations in the chat. So I'm very excited to be watching and reviewing this Indian movie. It's a new audience, so we're trying to pull into both of our channels, actually. So very, very, very excited about that. So that stream is actually up. So make sure you hit your reminders for that so you do not miss it. And folks, so with that said, thank you so much for hanging out with us to review Stranger Things Season 4, Part 2. We so appreciate all of your support for both of our channels. Please do make sure you hit that like button and also share the video out as well. And special thanks to you guys watching on the replay. We sure do appreciate you guys. So with that said, we're going to end the stream and we will see you next time. Bye.